I feel like at some point he's gonna call me a clown. That's his like go-to.
I'll be like, that's me.
135 pounds. 135.1 is official.
It's different levels. You know what I mean? It's definitely different levels when you come.
Jake Paul has always built his career around confidence and controversy, but the latest footage of Gervonta Tank Davis's bulked-up body seems to have rattled even him. Clips of a noticeably stronger, more muscular Davis went viral, and fans quickly began speculating that Paul might have underestimated just how seriously the lightweight champion was taking this fight. Known for his explosive power and precision, Davis now looks more like a natural welterweight, sending a loud and clear message that he's not just here for show, but to dominate. People close to Paul have hinted that the YouTuber-turned-boxer is starting to feel the heat, realizing that this new, powerful version of Tank could be far more dangerous than anyone anticipated. As the countdown to the November 14th showdown continues, both fans and analysts are stunned by Davis's physical transformation. Known for his compact frame and explosive strength, the 5 feet 5 inches lightweight has packed on serious muscle, looking stronger, quicker, and more dangerous than ever. The difference between Davis's new solid build and Paul's cruiserweight frame was hard to miss during their heated face-off in Miami, especially when Davis shoved Paul. That moment only added to the tension. With Davis now resembling a compact powerhouse, people are starting to wonder if Jake Paul's trademark confidence is beginning to crack under the pressure of facing a fighter who's not just skilled, but now physically intimidating. Davis has long been respected for his punching power, lightning-fast reflexes, and sharp ring IQ, but his recent transformation has taken him to a whole new level. Photos and videos from training camp show a more muscular Tank, broader shoulders, thicker arms, and a tighter core without losing any of his trademark speed or agility. This isn't just about adding bulk for show. It's about building the kind of strength that can dominate, right?
Right? Who's not a professional fighter. What happens? What happens? That's what would sell it. I know the size difference is what creates the problem. The optics, the look, the reality. I mean, you got one guy who's fights at 135 pounds, and you got another guy who fights at 200. I mean, just that alone, yeah. But you also, and I'm not saying I want this or I like this when I heard it. No, I didn't like it, to be honest, for the optics and everything else I just said. But you do have one guy who, yeah, he's smaller, but he's a top fighter, he can punch, and he's fighting a guy who's not a top pro fighter, who's bigger. What if he hits him on the chin?
In a recent interview, the UFC bantamweight champion bluntly stated that Davis is leagues above Jake Paul in both skill and fight IQ, acknowledged Paul's physical advantages, but dismissed them as meaningless against a fighter like Tank, who's undefeated and known for his knockout power. He also criticized the commission for turning the fight into an exhibition, arguing that it takes away the true competitive edge the sport deserves.
What do you think of him and Tank?
I enjoy these fucking stupid spectacles. I enjoy them. I'm excited for it. The controversy, the press conference, the weigh-ins. Imagine those two stand next to each other. Yeah. Dude, Jake is a big motherfucker. It's basically like you two standing next to each other. Like if you guys stood up, it looks like that. Steiny's a little bit Tank taller than Gervonta.
But I'm a feisty bro. It's not about the size of the dog. It's about the size of the what?
However, many observers see the matchup less as a legitimate sporting contest and more as a crossover entertainment event. That perception has fueled debates about fairness, safety, and the integrity of boxing's weight class system.
Tank is not the guy that knows how to sell a fight. Tank cannot sell a fight in his own division. You have the Paul brothers and they come over to boxing. Their idea from day one is we don't have the skills or the experience. What we're going to do is we'll take on the absolute best guys, but they're going to spot us some pounds. Tank has one job to do, that it doesn't make any difference, that boxing is a real sport. My skills versus your skill, of which I am an abundance of and of which you have none of. Tank is telling anybody that will listen that there's a size problem. My skills and my experience in boxing, I do not have to wonder who's in the bar tonight. Any bar I go to, I rule the bar. Well, no, it turns out that you don't. Just need some big guy to corner you, apparently. Boxing has never stood its ground. Boxing has never been able to explain why Floyd needed a half hour to get rid of a guy who's never boxed before. Tank Davis has already began this. When you choose a dum-dum, don't be surprised when he goes out and acts like a dum-dum.
Experts argue that most of Jake Paul's fights lack competitive logic or proper balance. They believe his matchups are designed more for attention and spectacle than for genuine sporting merit. Instead of facing opponents who make sense stylistically or by weight class, Paul keeps choosing unconventional fights. Too many analysts, his bouts are fun to watch, but lack the authenticity of real boxing competition.
Paul won the fight. But yeah, that was that. This time, Jake Paul is to take on Tank Davis. Tank Davis, he was recently in the news for being arrested for a domestic violence incident involving one of his kids' mother. He was alleged to have slapped her about the place. The charges were later dropped, to be fair to him. But yeah, that was when he was last in the news. What is interesting is just a couple of months ago, Tank Davis was saying openly that he'd lost his passion for boxing and that he wanted time away from the sport. There was speculation that he might even retire as he was experiencing extreme mental fatigue from boxing, depression, and there were mental health concerns over him. However, I guess the opportunity to earn a truck full of money, fighting a completely worthless exhibition fight against Jake Paul was enough to make him change his mind about boxing. Funny that, isn't it? But you know what? I'm not even going to waste your time or mine critiquing this utter nonsense. Suffice to say that this so-called fight we're talking about is an exhibition, and it pits Jake Paul, who is a cruiserweight, by the way, weighs in excess of 200 pounds. And Tank Davis, who is, he was the WBA lightweight champion, who weighs in at about 135 pounds when he fights. So that's a disparity of some 65 pounds. In old money, that's about 4.5 stone. There's also a significant difference in height. Jake Paul is roughly, 6'1", 2. Gervonta Davis is 5'5" at best.
Jake Paul weighed in at 199.5 pounds, competing as a cruiserweight, while Gervonta Tank Davis last fought at 133.5 pounds in the lightweight division. That massive difference prompted the Georgia State Athletic Commission to reject the original venue over safety concerns, forcing organizers to move the fight to Miami, even though the exhibition match now has a 195 pounds limit. Davis's new bulk suggests he's closing the gap strategically. Still, Paul maintains a noticeable size advantage, which could play a big role in power and endurance once they step into the ring. The fight essentially pits size against skill making, in one of the most unusual matchups in modern boxing history.
Those little teeny weeny dudes. So that's going to be a very fun and interesting to watch how that goes down. Now, on the other side, what Jake Paul's going to do. He don't have no consciousness. He doesn't have a conscience about what he's trying to do. He's going to go in there try to hurt a 60-year-old Mike Tyson. He don't care. He wanted to, Nate, he's way bigger than Nate Jones when he fought Nate Jones. He didn't care about hitting Nate Jones upside the head. He's definitely going to be looking to try to get as much as he can get off on Gervonta Davis and I see him trying to run up on him, trying to maul him, trying to grab him, trying to club him, trying to do all kind of craziness, man. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch. Now, let me tell you what I really hope, and I haven't seen for this particular card, but I know that I know it's going to be good, which is the undercard. The undercard for the Canelo Alvarez fight and Terrence Crawford fight is absolutely horrendous. There's nothing on the thing that would make you want to watch to tune into that thing 2 seconds before the fight between Canelo Alvarez and Terrence Crawford takes place. There's nothing on that card. So this fight for Gervonta or this exhibition for Gervonta and Jake Paul is probably going to have a lot of MVP fighters on there.
Ryan Garcia compared this event to other controversial matchups in boxing's past, like Mike Tyson's exhibition bouts that fans never really wanted. Garcia admitted that the public didn't ask for Davis versus Paul either, but said that sometimes the boxing world pushes these spectacles forward anyway. He emphasized that Davis is much smaller than Paul, calling the fight unfair from the start. Still, Garcia added that fans will ultimately accept it because of the hype and the massive money behind it.
It's a fucking disgrace of a fight.
Yeah.
You know it. Just like the Mike Tyson, low-key was a disgrace, but we accepted it. But
Yeah.
he was 60 years old. I mean, the casuals don't see the weight difference. They see Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis.
Yeah.
And if Gervonta Davis doesn't fuck up Jake Paul, they're going to think Jake Paul is some pound-for-pound champion type of fighter.
Yeah.
Gervonta Davis, he's actually really small. Like, when I fought him, like, he's small.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a very unfair fight.
Former world champion Carl Froch didn't hold back, calling the whole situation an absolute joke. According to Froch, negotiations for a Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight were nearly 99% complete. Instead of taking on a heavyweight like Joshua, Paul switched gears to fight Davis, who's literally half his size. Froch found that move ridiculous and said it proves Jake is more interested in shock value and viral attention than in genuine, high-level competition.
Davis is now fighting Jake Paul. So Jake Paul was supposed to be fighting AJ. Eddie Hearn announced 99% done, which we've just spoke about. What next for AJ? Potentially Jake Paul. But it now looks like that Jake Paul is fighting one of Anthony Joshua's legs. He's fighting Gervonta Davis, somebody who's a quarter of his size. I don't even know what's going on. Has Eddie Hearn been played? Let me know what you think, but the AJ fight with Jake Paul's finished. Gervonta Davis, fake Paul, November. I don't know what's going on in the world of boxing. This is an absolute joke. What next for AJ? We'll get into this, and there's so many questions I want to get into in the next episode, but hope you enjoyed this one. And yeah, I just thought I'd give you a quick update because the news has just come in, and I'm just trying to relax and play a bit of golf, and I can't. I've got to get it off my chest. I'm going to add it to this video. Hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, if you haven't already, hit like, share, and subscribe to the best channel in the business, Froch on Fighting, and we'll see you very soon.
3 Division undisputed champion Terrence Crawford is also doubtful about the Paul vs. Davis matchup. He sees it as more of a stylized sparring session than a real contest because of the massive size difference. While Crawford admits that Davis is an incredibly talented and explosive fighter, he believes Paul's larger frame could easily shift the fight's momentum. If Paul lands one clean shot, that weight and reach advantage could change everything.
Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over with.
Jake Paul has been redefining boxing on his own terms. By investing his own money into promotion, production, and storytelling, he's turned what many once dismissed as a gimmick into a force that's hard to ignore. His financial power doesn't just create big fights, it magnifies them, drawing in new audiences and media attention. While purists scoff at his unconventional approach, the results are clear: more viewers, bigger paydays, and new energy in a sport that needed it. The fact that this unlikely fight is happening at all shows how far Jake is willing to go to bend the rules and make his ambitions reality.
Perspective. But again, if it makes dollars, it makes sense, and we've seen that Jake will kind of bounce in between doing these entertainment fights and then, you know, trying to push toward his goal of you know, ingraining himself in the sport of boxing, and kind of does both of them. So it's kind of a weird place to be because he wants the respect of the boxing fans and the boxing hierarchy and hardcore boxing people, but at the same time he'll gain some of that and then lose some of it. It's like a seesaw of his fights. Like one fight and be like, okay, that's a real fight, or that's a real fighter. And he'll go and he'll win the fight. You know, Julio Cesar Chavez, real fighter, maybe past his prime, whatever, but Jake goes and wins that fight pretty easily and then gets a lot of respect, gets a lot of the boxing hardcore love. And you have these talks about him fighting Anthony Joshua, and that was going to get even more respect. More people were like, that's fucking crazy. What are you doing? Myself included. That seemed like a massive risk, but a lot of people were like, okay, fair play. Anthony Joshua, that's a real heavyweight. Jake wants to fight him. He's a psycho, but fair play. And then you announce this one, and it's like, well, That's the same thing people have been saying about Jake for years, so it's a weird spot to be in for him for sure. But I talked about this not being the first choice, and I don't think it was, because Coppinger reports next that talks for Jake Paul to face Anthony Joshua collapsed over network issues. Now, we had all heard the talks, and they were pretty public, from Eddie Hearn, from Jake. Nikisa Badarian, Jake's manager, was over in the UK on, I think, Sky Sports, talking about the fight and saying how it was a real possibility and they were really starting to work on it.
On the flip side, experts like Wade Plem argue that Jake Paul has actually revived boxing by attracting people who never cared about the sport before. He notes that Jake's influence is especially strong among younger fans who prefer entertainment-focused fights over traditional matchups. Even though controversial, Plem believes this boost in popularity and cultural reach outweighs complaints about authenticity. Vargas Jr. agrees, saying the element of surprise makes the fight more intriguing. For him, the unexpected nature of the matchup alone creates excitement. Whether good or bad, he believes the shock factor keeps people talking, and that in itself makes it worth the attention.
You know, so I think that the Misfits brings a different element. Obviously, there's chaos and all of these things, and it's not the most buttoned up and it's not the most high level, but there are moments where you have some really competitive fights. And even with the Jake and Gervonta thing, it's like, is it the best thing for boxing? That's boxing's fault, right? Like, if you're going to complain about it, point the finger the other way, because everybody else did it. You guys put yourselves in this position where these kind of fights are more interesting than some of your world title fights. And that's really, really sad, I know, but that's where we're at. And is it Jake's fault for being like, yeah, this is what people want to see, I'm going to do it? Yeah. Is it Gervonta Davis's fault? Maybe a little bit, because he's a world champion. Yeah. Give up your belt. To me, it should be give your belt up, right? You're saying to the world, you don't want to fight Shakur Stevenson, you don't want to fight Lamont Roach, so give the belt up. That's fine. Go do that. Okay. Say you're done at the highest level. Say you have no interest in being a world champion, and I'm okay with it. Yeah. But outside of that, man, I mean, it's a money fight and it's an exhibition. Everybody, I think, kind of knows what that brings in. So, yeah, I don't really have a problem with it, but at the same time, boxing needs to get its stuff together, so this isn't the most popular thing, you know?
BJ Flores views the Davis fight as a smart strategic move for Jake Paul's long-term boxing career. He believes Jake's frame and natural growth fit better in the cruiserweight and heavyweight divisions, but by facing a respected name like Tank Davis, Jake isn't just chasing a payday, he's building credibility. Flores sees the matchup as a calculated stepping stone that could raise Jake's profile and open doors to tougher, higher-stakes fights in the future. In his eyes, the Davis bout isn't the final goal, it's part of a bigger plan to elevate Paul's status and lead to more serious opportunities.
That's a funny story. So one of my good friends, Armani, he has been working with Jake Paul for the last 2 years. Oh. There was a little time where Shane wasn't there with Jake, and Armani called me up and said, hey, BJ, will you come down to Big Bear and spar with Jake? And I'm like, you want me to spar with Jake? I'm thinking to myself, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, he's beating up all his sparring partners. We come, I was like, all right. I mean, fine, I'll go down there and do it. I have been inactive. I haven't done anything for like 8 months. But I was like, okay, I'll go down there. So we spar a couple times. After that, they decided I was too big for him. And, you know, it's better if we just, you know, not do it. And, then they asked me if I would be interested in like working the mitts with him and helping him with the combinations, because I was hitting him with some combinations they hadn't seen before. And I said, we can teach him all those things and have him doing all those things. And so I started working the mitts with him and helping him out on the mitts. And he told his trainers and everybody, they're like, man, I want BJ around for the entire camp, because I'm getting better. My job is like Shane does the advice in the corner and I do the mitts.
Meanwhile, Jake Paul answered all the criticism about the Davis fight in his own dramatic style by smashing a tank-shaped cake. The stunt, clearly staged, was meant to mock Davis and show Jake as the villain in control of the story. Rather than letting critics dominate the conversation, he flipped it by turning the attention back on himself. The cake smashing was symbolic. It sent a message that Jake will use spectacle and showmanship to stay in the spotlight. It might seem childish to some, but in his world, moments like that keep the hype alive. And whether people love it or hate it, they're definitely talking. Do you think Jake Paul can handle this new, bulked up version of Gervonta Tank Davis? Share your thoughts in the comments below.